Morning, good to have you with us on a Friday. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah will join us in just a few minutes. We begin our show with a potential breakthrough in the Middle East. Right now, Israel's security cabinet is convening to vote on a ceasefire hostage deal that would pause the war in Gaza and see the phased release of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners. Israeli media reports 33 hostages will be released in the first phase of the deal, which is expected to begin as soon as Sunday. Now, despite the agreement, Israeli attacks on Gaza have killed more than 100 Palestinians since the deal was announced on Wednesday. That's according to Gaza's Civil Defense Agency. The decimated strip is expected to receive a surge in humanitarian aid under the terms of this deal. Meanwhile, in Washington, there was a protest at Secretary of State Antony Blinken's final press conference before leaving office. Blinken was berated by two journalists who criticized U.S. support for Israel before they were forcibly removed. Amid the emotion, Blinken said that he was hopeful the deal would lead to a permanent ceasefire.
Over 15 months of devastating conflict between Israel and Hamas, we've worked to broker a deal that would bring hostages home, that would stop the fighting, that would surge humanitarian aid to people who so desperately need it, that would create the space to conclude a permanent ceasefire. We now have that, and we expect implementation of the agreement to begin on Sunday.
NBC News correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian joins us now from Tel Aviv. So, Danielle, looks like Israel's security cabinet voting in this meeting right now. Walk us through how we finally got here. Is this deal expected to go through?
A short answer is yes, Joe. It is expected to go through, and it's now a question of formalities before things get moving on the ground. The Security Cabinet has been meeting for well over an hour and a half now, and the vote is expected at some point today. Of course, this meeting was delayed by 24 hours. To take you back just yesterday, Israel had come out saying that Hamas was making last-minute demands. Hamas was saying no, that they were committed to the agreement. But critics of Benjamin Netanyahu were saying that this was classic Netanyahu frantically trying to keep his fragile coalition together because far-right ministers in his government were threatening to quit if this deal goes ahead. Even if they do not support this deal, Joe, it is expected to pass. And in fact, the Prime Minister's office just a few moments ago putting out a statement saying that they expect the hostages to be released as on Sunday, probably around midday is what we're hearing from Israeli media. Things are quite fluid. I hesitate to give you timings in terms of the next step, but the government is then expected to vote possibly later today. We're hearing it could happen tomorrow, but things, as I say, are changing by the hour. Once that is done, there'll be a few hours dedicated to allowing people to protest legally their opposition to the release of Palestinian prisoners, but that should not expect the ceasefire from being implemented on Sunday, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, tell us more once we get to that point what this is going to mean for both the hostages and the people of Gaza if and when this truce does begin on Sunday.
Well, a ceasefire means what it means. There will not be Israeli drones, Israeli fighter jets flying above Gaza. And if the last deal back in November 2023 is anything to go by, the hostages will be handed over to members of the Red Cross, who will then hand them over to the IDF and who will then bring them back to Israel. In exchange for those hostages, of course, we know that Palestinian prisoners will be released. 30 Palestinian prisoners for every hostage. If it's a female soldier being released, you're looking at 50 Palestinian prisoners. Thousands, Joe, thousands have been arrested since October 7th in the West Bank. Many of them have been arrested without being tried or charged.
And Danielle, Israel's far-right national security and finance ministers, they've threatened to quit the government if this deal is agreed upon. I mean, what would that mean for Netanyahu's somewhat fragile coalition? Could their resignations bring down his government or derail the deal?
No, the deal will go ahead with or without Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich. The support, that's a separate thing. His coalition government, however, that's another issue. Ben-Gvir, who is the national security minister, who, by the way, earlier this week admitted to having blocked previous hostage deals because he believes that a deal means surrendering to Hamas. He has said that he will quit if this goes ahead. That would leave Benjamin Netanyahu with 62 seats. That is a very slim majority. If the finance minister then also quits, then you're looking possibly at snap elections. It's unclear what the timing or the timetable would be. But those ministers have also indicated if stage one goes ahead and then the IDF goes back in to fight, then they might choose to join the coalition once again. Who knows? This is all very unpredictable. But keep your eyes on the West Bank, because the Prime Minister might try to give something to the Finance Minister in exchange for his support.
All right. Danielle, thank you so much. Firefighters in Southern California are gaining ground in their battle against those catastrophic wildfires. The fires have claimed at least 27 lives and destroyed more than 12,000 structures, many of them homes. Right now, more than 80,000 people remain under evacuation orders. As for the cause of the fire, that remains under investigation. From fighting fires to frost and freeze, a blast of Arctic air will bring a polar plunge to a large stretch of the country this weekend. Some cities will see their coldest weather of the season on Monday. We are talking about highs that are 20 to 40 degrees below average across most of the nation. Let's get some specific numbers, many of them with a negative sign in front of them. And for your Morning News Now weather with Angie Lastman and the forecast. Angie, good morning.
Hey there, Joe. Good morning. Don't take it on me. This cold air that's going to spill in, it sure is going to make you change maybe some plans as we get into this weekend and next week. One bit of good news out west. We are seeing those winds down for folks across Southern California. So all of those red flag warnings have since expired. Great for the firefighters working on getting all of that situation taken care of. Here's what we've got as far as those chilly temperatures, though. 30s across parts of the northern plains, but feeling like the 20s for a lot of folks. This is not as bad as it's going to get. We actually will be running above normal by the time we get into the afternoon hours today. So 40s in Chicago, 30s for Minneapolis. But here comes that Arctic air. Tomorrow in Denver, 21 degrees. We're running way below normal across really this entire region. We'll only get to the 30s in parts of Texas, especially northern Texas. And then all that chilly air starts to spread farther to the east and south. Memphis into the 20s. We've got teens for St. Louis. By Monday in Rockford, single-digit temperatures. You add in the wind chill to these values, and we're talking really cold conditions. Monday in Chicago, just temperatures into the single digits as well. We've got sub-zero. Feels like temperatures. 21 below is what it'll feel like in Chicago on Monday. So get ready for that. We've got a little system that's going to work through parts of the Northeast really through the day today, bringing a little snow here as we get into tomorrow. We'll see some of that. Nothing too impressive, but we will have plenty of rain across parts of the Southeast. And then as we get into Sunday, more of that snow is expected to expand into the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. This will leave us with a couple of inches of snow possible across the I-95 corridor, Joe, as we get into Sunday and work into Monday. So a mixed bag of some wintry weather across much of the country.
All the winter weather.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, Angie. Appreciate it. Speaking of weather, Californians are worried about a new threat in places wiped out by the deadly wildfires. Mudslides when rain finally does come. NBC News national correspondent Morgan Chesky has more on that as the firefight continues, with tens of thousands still not allowed to return to their homes.
A new danger emerging across a fire-stricken city. This Palisades home split in half after officials say a water leak caused a scorched hillside to give way. No one was hurt, but the still smoldering scene piling on anxiety ahead of any future rain.
If you were in a fire evacuation zone, is there a likely chance you'll be evacuated come rainy season from mudslides?
There is a very likely chance. We're going to have to tell homeowners to remain alert.
Teams still facing 36 square miles of door-to-door inspections before more than 80,000 evacuated residents can safely return to their neighborhoods.
They're shutting off the natural gas. They're cutting the electrical lines, so there's nothing that you can touch and get electrocuted if it was re-energized by accident.
Los Angeles water and power crews testing hydrants to find the source of that ongoing water leak. The department now the target of a civil lawsuit over a reservoir that was offline for maintenance. Some Palisades fire victims alleging a 117 million gallon water storage complex was empty, leaving fire crews little to no water to fight the Palisades fire. Dan Grigsby lost his home of 37 years.
What do you hope to accomplish with this lawsuit?
Accountability, I would say, and make sure it absolutely never happens again.
LA's water system already under investigation after crews reported shortages on both the Palisades and Eaton fires.
Out of every fire hydrant you've seen, what have you found? Right now, we're finding most of them are down or low pressure. If you had a hydrant for this building, if we had a hydrant for this building, we might have been able to save the back out.
Last year, Martin Adams retired from leading Los Angeles Water and Power.
What would you tell those homeowners who saw that water go dry in a time of need?
The one thing that is important to understand up front is that there's no water system in the world that could provide the kind of water demand that was required in this fire.
And as those calls for accountability grow, the firefight definitely not over. Officials saying they now have more than 5,000 firefighters that have converged here in Los Angeles County. Their key missions, putting out those hot spots and driving up those containment numbers. Morgan Chesky, NBC News, Malibu.
Morgan, thank you so much. Now, the damage from the fires is just starting to come into focus, but it's already clear that California's insurer of last resort is facing an expensive crisis. NBC News correspondent Liz Croyst explains why.
That's our house.
These were the harrowing moments the Edwards family saw their Altadena home of 30 years go up in flames.
It feels like a bomb just came and exploded on our town.
Everything's gone. Across town in the Pacific Palisades, the Andonian family stunned by the complete devastation of their community, too.
I froze, literally.
When you saw your home?
Sorry. And then the next house, and the next house, and the next house.
Two different neighborhoods, two different life stories, but similar in one way. Both families are on California's FAIR Plan, the state-created insurer of last resort that has more than doubled its number of residential policies in the past 4 years, as private insurers have either drastically raised homeowners' rates or simply dropped them. The Edwards family says they were dropped by their insurer last year and struggled to find a replacement.
And they said, no, sorry, we can't cover you for your home insurance. You're too close to the fire zone.
Current estimates for the Los Angeles fires show insured losses are already about $25 billion. For just the FAIR Plan, it's as much as about $8 billion. The challenge, according to the California Department of Insurance, the plan only has $377 million available to pay claims and about $5.75 billion in reinsurance to help cover the plan's losses. It's a scenario the FAIR Plan's own president warned about last year.
We are one event away from a large assessment. There's no other way to say it because we don't have the money on hand and we have a lot of exposure out there.
In September, Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara issued this bulletin outlining a new agreement for what might happen should the FAIR Plan ever run out of money. The memo allows the insurance companies who make up the plan to request permission to have FAIR Plan policyholders share the costs, meaning their rates could soar.
He's not doing his job. He's not protecting consumers.
Democratic Congressman and former California Insurance Commissioner John Garamendi critical of the deal Lara made.
The reality is the commissioner has not been transparent, and he's not forced the insurance companies to explain and to justify what they are doing.
We talked to Commissioner Lara last week, 2 days after the fires started. Can the insurer of last resort sustain this?
So currently, right now, we don't know how many policies are in the insurer of last resort that we call the FAIR Plan. We're going to get a better picture once the fire is contained.
The FAIR Plan also saying it is too early to determine if an assessment will be sought. And Insurance Commissioner Lara's office adding he issued clear rules to safeguard FAIR Plan's financial stability and that policyholders would only have to cover additional costs as a last resort.
We'll be okay.
For families like the Andonians and the Edwards, this all the last thing they thought they'd have to deal with.
What's next?
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
But I'm very hopeful that we'll rebuild. I'm so hopeful that we're going to get through this. God's help, we're going to get through this.
Liz Kreutz, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Now to Washington, where it has been a busy week for lawmakers holding confirmation hearings for President-elect Trump's cabinet picks. It is a big week for the Dakotas. Yesterday, North Dakota's former governor was in the hot seat. Today, it's South Dakota's current governor, Kristi Noem. She's Mr. Trump's choice for Homeland Security Secretary. Noem's expected to face scrutiny over Mr. Trump's plans for mass deportations when he takes office. Yesterday, during day 3 of confirmation hearings, lawmakers heard from Treasury Secretary pick Scott Bessent. He was bullish about the future of the economy under President-elect Trump.
I believe that President Trump has a generational opportunity to unleash a new economic golden age that will create more jobs, wealth, and prosperity for all Americans.
NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now with the latest. Ryan, good morning. So let's start with Scott Bessent's day on Capitol Hill. He defended the president-elect's plans for tariffs on China and other countries, and he warned heavier sanctions were on the way for Russia. Talk more about what we heard from him.
Yeah, Bessent's confirmation hearing was very interesting, Joe, because it gave us quite a bit of insight into what Donald Trump's fiscal plan is going forward. And what Bessent argued to these members of the United States Senate is that the extension of the Trump tax cuts, which were originally passed during Trump's first term but are set to sunset this year, must be extended as soon as possible. He believes that the economy's health is contingent upon it. Listen to what he told senators yesterday.
This is the single most important economic issue of the day. This is pass-fail. That if we do not fix these tax cuts, if we do not renew and extend, then we will be facing an economic calamity. And as always, with financial instability, that falls on the middle and working class people.
Now, Democrats don't agree with Bessent's assessment there. They believe that the Trump tax cuts were largely just a giveaway to the wealthiest Americans and didn't do much to help middle-class Americans. So this will be a fight in the upcoming Congress. It is the highest priority for Donald Trump outside of his immigration plan, and it's one that he may have to do with only Republican support because Democrats are not going to be inclined to give him this big of a political win this early on in his administration. Joe.
Ryan, let's look ahead and what we can expect lawmakers to ask Mr. Trump's choice to run the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. Immigration and the border obviously were big campaign issues for the president-elect. What could come up here?
Yeah, I mean, Homeland Security is such a vast and important agency, and it is really the tip of the spear for Donald Trump's agenda because immigration is such an important aspect of what he hopes to accomplish in the early days after he takes office. You can expect Noem to get a lot of tough questions, particularly from Democrats, about how this mass deportation plan would be implemented. Who exactly would be deported? Where would they go? How would they be housed in the interim after they are arrested and detained? And then how is the administration going to pay for it? This could be a program that could cost hundreds of billions of dollars. Donald Trump, outside of saying that he was going to pay for it, perhaps with these new tariffs that he's going to install, finding other areas of the government to cut in order to support it, has really not come up with a plan to pay for it. So expect Noem to be really pressed as to how the reality of this program can actually be implemented once Trump takes office.
And Ryan, if Governor Noem is confirmed as Homeland Security Secretary, NBC News is reporting her role as secretary is expected to be more limited in scope than that of her predecessors. That's according to sources who are familiar with the Trump transition. What more can you tell us about this?
Well, you have to look no further than Trump's appointment of Tim Homan as the border czar to kind of be the front focal point person who is going to take on the responsibilities of implementing this mass deportation program. Republicans have often criticized the Department of Homeland Security of having too much purview into too many different areas. They blame, for instance, the issues having to do with the Secret Service and the failures that the Secret Service has had over a period of time, attributing that to the fact that the Department of Homeland Security has too many responsibilities in too many different areas. The plan could be for the department to be not necessarily broken up, but to give more people more responsibilities that would not directly be attributable to the secretary herself. How that actually manifests itself, we'll have to wait and see until after this administration takes office.
All right, Ryan Nobles, as always, thank you so much. Now, the inauguration, Mr. Trump's second, is just 3 days away, and final preparations are underway. Ahead of the pomp and pageantry, security preps are a main focus in the nation's capital. More than 250,000 people are expected to attend. For more, we're joined by NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander. Peter, good to see you, my friend. So the swearing-in and parade will be D.C.'s third major national special security event just since the beginning of this year. Talk about how the city's preparing, especially considering these previous attempts we saw last year on Mr. Trump's life.
Yeah, this is going to be a security issue, also going to be a temperature issue. They're expecting the temperatures well below freezing on Monday as tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands arrive here. As you noted, they have 30-plus miles of non-scalable fencing all around this area. Walking into the White House this morning, I already saw a lot of that that's been put in place right now. 25,000-plus law enforcement and military personnel who will be here. You talked about the 250,000 ticketed guests who were expected to take place to be here for the inauguration on Monday. They also think there could be about 10,000 protesters. They have given about a dozen permits for protest-oriented activities to take place over the weekend and again on Monday. Obviously, there have been a lot of lessons learned following January 6th. 4 years ago, with the FBI involved, multiple command posts, drones expected to be in the air. They feel very strongly and confident that they're going to be able to keep everybody safe this weekend.
All right, let's talk about the ceremony itself. What can we expect besides lots of down jackets?
Yeah, a lot of down jackets, certainly. Well, we do expect, obviously, a lot of the traditions that you have seen over the past many years. We know that Joe Biden will be in attendance. He promised a peaceful transfer of power on that official dais. As we've been reporting, there will be a lot of tech titans, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk among them. Also, the past presidents, Bill Clinton, George Bush, and Barack Obama will be in attendance. NBC News is now told that none of those past presidents is expected to attend the traditional inaugural luncheon that follows. Michelle Obama will not be attending the ceremony on Monday. Nancy Pelosi, the former House Speaker who frequently clashed with Donald Trump, will not be there either. But certainly it will be a celebratory atmosphere. Already hearing from many people who I met over the course of the first Trump presidency who are flying in from around the country in advance of the activities, with the real big kickoff of sorts taking place Sunday night with a rally at Capital One Arena. That is home to Washington's NBA and NHL teams. That's going to be a big one this weekend.
And Peter, this also marks the final weekend as president for Joe Biden, who you've been covering these past 4 years. What do we know about his plans and just how he's feeling as he prepares to end his 5-decade career in public life?
Well, you can imagine he's not feeling great about the way that he is departing. A source close to the outgoing president telling NBC News that he is dejected, and everybody around him is feeling that way as well. We're told by multiple sources close to President Biden that he has sort of had a swing of emotions since the election, at times wistful, angry, melancholy. A lot of the experiences, a lot of the emotions you can imagine a man, 82 years, who spent more than 5 decades in public life and public service, would be feeling as he prepares to depart. We are told by those close to the president that he and his wife, Jill Biden, will be flying out to Central California to Santa Barbara County. They'll spend a little time in Santa Ynez. They spent some time there last year as well, as he sort of takes I think we can all agree, well-deserved break after these last 4 years.
Yes, vacation certainly earned there. Peter Alexander, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.